early polling out there, and we are, of course, taking a look at the latest numbers with just days to go until Iowa.
All right, Team Rising is here. Molly Mitchell, she previously served as Director of Media Affairs for the DCCC, and Gabby Orr, she's a White House reporter for Politico. Two great friends of the show. Good to see you guys.
Great to see you, ladies.
All right, breaking news this morning. It's really crazy, which shows Bernie up top in this NBC Wall Street Journal poll. First time that he's been up there. Of course, caveat, margin of error is 4.7%. So I guess in a virtual tie with Joe Biden. Statistical virtual tie there. What do you make of this, Molly? I mean, we knew that he was surging in Iowa, New Hampshire, and even Nevada, but to put him up top nationally, I think he's very much, solidifying himself into a place to carry that all the way forward through Super Tuesday. What do you think?
Oh, definitely. I think that I know on Twitter's sphere, everyone hates when people say that it's really going to come down to turnout. But in this case, unlike 2016, it really matters because there is such a crowded field still. So if you win the first one or two and you get that momentum, that is critical going into Super Tuesday. And if Bernie does that, then he definitely could be the nominee.
Yeah, and what's interesting here is you're not really seeing Biden fall off. So in this poll, as other ones we're seeing, he's just sort of static, while Sanders is really consolidating a lot of support. Also in this poll, like a lot of other ones, it shows Sanders voters are more committed, but that seems to be the dynamic. It's not that Biden is really falling, it's that Sanders is surging.
Absolutely, and I think, let's keep in mind that Bernie Sanders has been grounded in Washington for the past week while Joe Biden has been out on the campaign trail in Iowa, having some awkward interactions with voters, like the video that
it's like the more he gets out there, the more he...
Did you guys see, I played this earlier, did you see where he handed out his Social Security talking points?
Oh, no.
So weird.
He has a card printed out with why Bernie is wrong.
Oh my gosh, it's like a church pamphlet.
Yeah, I know.
It was hilarious. The reporter's asking about it, and he's like, here.
So it's a great example of why Sanders is surging right now. I mean, we've been talking about this for months, but people want an authentic candidate and somebody who just energizes voters. And he's had that energy behind him all along. He's had the grassroots support. And I think now, as we're getting closer and closer to Democratic primary voting actually starting, people who are supporting Elizabeth Warren, people who are supporting Pete Buttigieg, other candidates are really starting to think seriously about their votes. And I think you're seeing them move in the direction of Sanders as opposed to others.
And I do think, though, that is an interesting point. It's one, they will want someone who's authentic. And the second, to Biden not falling behind, is that they also want someone who they think traditionally could beat Trump, right? And I think you see those are the two dueling. They've always wanted that, but I think that's why you haven't seen Biden support fall, because there still is that, whether we believe that to be true or not, that question of electability and the strongest name recognition.
Molly, do you think that holds up? Like, if Biden underperforms in Iowa, if Bernie wins Iowa and New Hampshire and potentially Nevada, does that sense, that armor of electability, does that really stand? Can you preserve the idea that you're the most electable when you're losing?
I think that's going to be really tough, and I think they're really hoping that in Iowa and New Hampshire they come out either on top or really close if you're Biden, because that is going to be tough. Now, I will say with Iowa, there are a couple of ways to say that you've won, right? There's the delegate count, there's just the raw vote, and then there's precincts won. Lily Adams had a great piece about this in Crooked Media, right? It is, you need to kind of call it yourself that night, because there could be two winners, so to say. So
they're technical winning.
Right. I think that can be interesting coming out of there, but I don't know. And then you have, of course, Bloomberg, who's not doing that badly, frankly, for Tuesday, waiting for you if you're Biden, and those are like the votes that he would take, not necessarily Sanders. So I think it is a big problem if he doesn't put up some good numbers early on.
So Crystal found this in the crosstabs of this journal poll. It's really interesting. Let's throw this up for Bernie Sanders voters, views on capitalism, views on socialism. Only 12% of his voters, and this is, I think, cross ages, right, Crystal? Have 12% of a positive view of capitalism, 48% with negative, 60% with a positive view of socialism.
Only 4% negative.
Right, 4% negative. You can contrast that with Joe Biden voters, 40% view of capitalism, 26% view, 31% positive view, 35% negative view. Gabby, this goes something I always check in with you whenever you're here, how the Trump campaign is looking at this. I took a look at it yesterday. A lot of this socialism it sucks attacks I predicted is absolutely going to fail. How are they looking at it? Because the president was in a rally last night. He actually basically said the same thing. He's like, they want to take everything away from you or whatever. I'm not sure that's the best attack. How are they thinking internally with this stuff in mind?
Yeah, the capitalism creates socialism takes line is not doing that well for Trump so far.
Mitt Romney called, right?
No, it is interesting, and I will note in the Pew Research poll as well, one thing that struck me was that 52% of Bernie Sanders supporters said that there are countries that are better than the U.S.
Right.
And if you looked at Biden and Buttigieg's supporters, that was around 17%, and then with Republican voters, it was around 9%.
Right.
And so I do think that plays right into this whole identity, this caricature that the Trump campaign is going to try to create if they face him as a general election opponent. They're going to say that Bernie Sanders not only wants to implement, Scandinavian socialism here in the U.S., but he already thinks that America is not a great country compared to these, and they're going to bring up, video evidence that we have of him partying with Soviet officials, and I do think that this is, to push back a little bit on you, I think it is a strong attack for them to use, and it's unique, especially to a senator who declares himself a democratic socialist.
Right.
But there are a number of other flaws that Donald Trump has that Bernie Sanders can easily attack, and Bernie Sanders' support among working class voters and non-college educated whites is something that they also need to take into account.
That's the swing, right?
Yeah.
That's where
I think Sanders would welcome a debate focused on economics, would be the strongest possible ground he could stand on. Molly, to you, on these the capitalism versus socialism views within the Democratic Party. I mean, part of why you see this breakdown is because the feelings about capitalism and socialism are very much generational.
They are.
So
especially
Sanders,
with the Biden view.
Right. So Sanders with young folks, his strength there, and they are much more comfortable with socialism and have much more contempt for capitalism. With older voters, it's exactly the opposite. Although, honestly, I'm sort of surprised that people are as split as they are, the Biden voters, on socialism and capitalism. But it really is a sort of generational split within the party.
No, definitely. And I think that during the primary, that helps Sanders, having that. But I think in the general, to your point, that could be a problem. It really depends on the messaging, right? I mean, what comes down to how we define capitalism and socialism, and it's somewhere in between the gray area for a lot of Democrats where they want to live in a capitalist society, but they want really strong social safety net benefits, right? And I think that's the sweet spot that someone needs to walk. And, Warren has, again, said that she is a capitalist, even though she has very progressive ideas, and I think that might be a better spot to be in than being so far one or the other. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
If you
absolutely.
look at her base, though, I mean, Warren's base is disproportionately affluent and white. It's not the working class base or the young folks that didn't turn out last time that Democrats need to turn out. I also think, and we talked about this yesterday, I think Republicans have basically broken this attack by calling everything socialism and trying to use this against Barack Obama, who's definitely not a I wish he had been a socialist. No,
and in 2018 they did that too. They called Nancy Pelosi a socialist, and we were trying to usher, and we still took back the House. Yes, I think it's a little bit broke. I think the stronger argument goes to when they go to Medicare for all and taking away people's health care. People don't seem to like that.
It is one thing, though, if you're actually running against somebody who says that they are a democratic socialist.
Right.
That, I think, makes it a different race between Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. If he's running an anti-socialism campaign against Joe Biden, then yes, it rings hollow. It's not
That's
something
one of the things that
use.
was weird, though, when we talked with some Trump officials here, and they were like, we're going to run the same socialist attacks against both of them. So I'm like, well, I mean, that doesn't seem to make sense, right? I mean, what's the efficacy in one way or the other?
And they have not recalibrated that strategy whatsoever. I actually talked to a senior Trump campaign official yesterday, and I said, look, if Joe Biden comes out of Iowa and New Hampshire with a lot of momentum, is there any change that we can expect in the messaging from the Trump campaign? And they said, no. These are all candidates who have embraced socialism, and that's the attack that we're going to run.
They keep saying that, and it doesn't seem. We'll get into it later.
But not based in fact.
We're going to continue having this debate, ladies. Thank you. We're going to have more for you right after this.